Sociology, colleagues and friends, and the incoming class of 2022 of BALH, BFA, and BA Sociology. Welcome to JSLH Annual Commencement Lecture 2022. I request Professor Kathleen Wojtowski, Dean JSLH, to please come and give the welcome address.
Thank you, Gargi. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see you all today. And I'd especially like to welcome our guests who will also be have a lot to say to us that will be very important. Dr. Saida Hamid and also Renee Singh, who will be performing a little bit later. Before you begin, I'd like to thank our Vice Chancellor, Siraj Kumar, because we've gone through a very difficult period. We're emerging from it, and thanks to his leadership and the innovation, we've been able to, even in the period of COVID and readjustment, to make some big advances. So I'm going to tell you just a few of them. Some of them have been that we've continued as JSLH, and I hope the new students who have arrived will be as excited as we are about our program. We've been around since 2014, and I think all faculty are still totally engaged with what we're doing, which is practicing holistic learning with interactive classrooms, interdisciplinarity, internationalization, and study abroad. There's going to be a greater and greater emphasis on study abroad. With this year, we already have going out of India right now, 21 students, 10 more waiting to get their visas to go abroad to places including Ireland, the UK, Japan, Canada, the US, Spain, and the Netherlands. We also have short-term programs. 35 students have joined in on those short-term programs, and we had to stop enrollment for US, Spain, and the Netherlands on the short-term program. Okay, so this is something really to look forward to see how we're going to be integrating this learning into your programs. But I would also like to let you know about the success that we've had with our BFA program, the Bachelor of Fine Arts program. I want to say a special word about the BFA because we feel art, expressive arts have an important place, an important role in education and learning. There isn't just one type of learning. We know that integrating your senses completely into what you're doing is very important, and it opens up very different avenues of looking at the world, expressing the world, and speaking. That means speaking in the sense of communicating to others. In addition to that, we've expanded with our postgraduate program in research and innovation. We're going into our second group with the students in the Jindal Fellowship program. And then this year, we're going to be launching the BA in Sociology. So stay tuned for more innovation, more events, more wonderful things that we will be doing. We count a lot on the faculty. We also have a lot of faith in our Vice Chancellor and the administrative staff. And the heart of the program in building the community is the students. So I'd like to welcome all of you to the program. And I really look forward to meeting many of you and working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. We now have Professor Raj Kumar delivering the keynote address.
A very good morning to all of you, and Of course, when Dr. Saida Hamid is present in a room, nobody else can deliver the keynote address except her, so I'm not going to even attempt to do that. First of all, it's a very special moment for all of us as we welcome the incoming batch of the students of the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. I would like to extend a warm welcome to the students who have joined the BA in Liberal Arts and Humanities, the BA Honours in Sociology, and of course the BFA program. I also know that all those students who have joined the university, you've gone through very difficult times. 2 years of uncertainty, of online classes. You have barely completed your 12th standard and you are here entering into a college and a university for your higher studies. The last 2 years has been extremely difficult and challenging for all of us, including you and your parents. But there was one thing that, there were probably two things. One was hope and the other was resilience. Both these things really inspired us to continue the journey, just as you continue the journey, notwithstanding numerous trials and tribulations that you faced as individuals, including your family members. So I want to pay tribute to the lives that we lost. So many wonderful people who left us during the last 2 years, recalling their memories with us, but also to recognize that we have a larger responsibility in these times. As students who are going to enter the portals of this institution, all I can say is that the world is dramatically changing. In March 2020, when we were here in this campus pursuing that academic year, little did we think that our worlds will change so dramatically that for 2 years we will not meet each other. The reluctance to even touch each other, or let alone hug, or even among family members to interact with each other and to even provide primary care to each other was something that most of us had never seen in our lives, and we experienced that as well. So today when we are back, I have 8 minutes and I'm going to very quickly talk a bit about the history and the context of this university. This university was founded as a philanthropic initiative of our founding chancellor and benefactor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, at a time when most business people have very little to contribute to society or outside their own business domain. Here we saw an extraordinary man who was prepared to make a significant commitment to philanthropy and establish a university in this manner. I had the privilege to meet him way back in 2006 and spent over a year persuading him to do three things. One, to make a substantial financial commitment. Second, to do it in a not-for-profit manner. And third, to let me have the academic freedom and autonomy and independence to build a world-class university in India. By late 2007, Mr. Jindal agreed to all of it and invited me to move from Hong Kong to India and pretty much set up this university. Me and a group of individuals came together and we pretty much laid the foundations of this, what we now see as university. But I want you to transport you to literally August 2009. August 2009 was very special because that's when we celebrated the first Founders Day on 7th August. There were no students, there were no faculty members, there were no staff. There were just, the first classroom was built in this first academic block, and I was giving a tour for a few people. There were a few individuals who were there on that day, and they are present here. I want to recognize the current Dean of the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, Kathleen Modrowski. She was there. Professor Stephen Marks, the Dean of the Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development, he was there, and a few more. And they were there, and along with them, many others joined, and a sense of collective consciousness was created for an idea. The time had come. We had a very modest beginning on 30th September 2009 with just one school and 100 students and 10 faculty members and 4 classrooms and accommodation for these 100 students who belong to the law school. And we had one office space, which was mine as Vice Chancellor, and office for the 10 faculty members and the 20 admin staff, which is now called the Big Bang Conference Room, which is just in this block. It all began there. Such a modest origin. Little did we know that the next 13 years will show us this pathway. And today we are about to be celebrating our 13th anniversary on 30th September 2022. We started on 30th September 2009. A few weeks from now, we'll be celebrating it. And we moved from 100 students in 2009 to over 10,000 students now. We moved from 10 full-time faculty members to over 1,000 full-time faculty members. We moved from 20 administrative staff to over 1,000 administrative staff. We moved from 100,000 square feet of built-up space to over 4 million square feet of built-up space. We moved from one school to 12 different schools and over 65 plus degree programs. The extraordinary journey of this university in a relatively short span of time has been possible because of the people who are around here and elsewhere in this university. The faculty members, the students, the staff, and every individual, right from the people who are horticulturists and gardeners and housekeepers and others, to everybody around. Everybody believed in that vision and they contributed their bit to make us what we are. So the students of Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, you are going to be joining another extraordinary group of individuals who come from 29 states of India and Union Territories, also probably 25 plus countries in the world. We are a diversified institution and we believe in the vision of diversity and pluralism and inclusivity deeply embedded in our institutional culture. As we welcome you to this campus, I sincerely hope that you will make the best use of the opportunities that the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities is offering to you, but also to be able to explore opportunities across the 12 schools of the university and programs in different schools as well. We are a very, very interdisciplinary institution. Go around this campus and you will not find a single title called, a building called the Jindal Global Law School or the Jindal Global Business School or the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. We believe all our institutional spaces are shared and are important for people to be using it, including this Performing Arts Academy that we are all part of. In fact, this academy was created during the COVID, and within 1 month, we built this academy. I want to say that because impossible things have happened in the last 13 years, and we've been able to do it because we believed in the vision of creating a world-class university. I want to recognize the fact that this journey is only the beginning. I believe that the next decade is going to create new opportunities that are going to build this institution and take it to this next level of excellence. And I know that you will be part of it. Our alumni are doing extremely well, and not a day passes without us hearing some of the wonderful things that our alumni are doing across India, around the world, in the corporate world, in public service, in pro bono work, in public policy, in law, in justice, and across various disciplines. I can only hope that you will join that group of alumni as you leave the portals of this institution in the years to come. I want to end by saying that the unique honor that we have today to be able to host Dr. Saeeda Hamid is something that all of you will treasure, just as I will. Dr. Hamid is one of the most distinguished public intellectuals of our country. We've had the honor of hosting her before, several years ago, when she was a member of the Planning Commission, or the now non-existent Planning Commission. She not only served extraordinarily well as a member of the Planning Commission, but she also contributed significantly towards public policy development. And we hosted her again for a commencement lecture hosted by the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy. I'm deeply grateful to Dr. Hamid, not just for her contribution towards public policy, but for the kind of person she is. Today, when we do face numerous challenges in our country, largely due to our lack of adequate understanding of the diversity and pluralism that is deeply embedded in our society, the voices of people like Dr. Hamid provides us hope and indeed recognizes the need for all of us taking responsibility towards building a society that has respect for each other, but most importantly, to celebrate our diversity. Our university is possibly a very unique example of what is possible when diverse people come together. The 1,000 faculty members that I talked about earlier, they come from 46 countries in the world. The 10,000 students that we talked about, they come from over 40 countries in the world and of course represent almost all states and union territories of India. One cannot imagine that such degree of diversity is possible in a place called Sonipat. Earlier, in sometime around August, I was giving a talk to our newly recruited faculty, and I'm going to ask the same question to you. Just imagine 5 years ago to the students here, maybe 7 years ago to the students here, if somebody had told you that 7 years later, you will be enrolled in a university which is located in Jagdishpur village, in a place called Sonipat, in the relatively rural part of Haryana, what would be your reaction? Would you have ever thought of this will be your aspirational institution? That has been the aspirational institution for all those students and these faculty who have come from 46 countries in the world. I want to end by saying that such is what can happen when people come together and create something that is beyond the capacity of a single individual, but if many minds and hearts come together, we can create something truly magical, and that's what OP Jindal Global University has been. With those words, I want to once again thank Dr. Saida Hamid, as well as Ms. Reni Singh, who have so kindly agreed to be part of this commencement lecture. I want to also particularly recognize and appreciate the extraordinary contribution of Professor Kathleen Modrowski, the Dean of the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. Professor Modrowski, when she took over the deanship in 2014, she told me that she was planning to come to India for a couple of years. And the couple of years is now 2022. I'm happy to report that she has no plans to return to the United States. So, and that means that there are a lot of people who have made significant professional and personal sacrifices to be part of an institution in India like what we are, because they have a deep commitment towards contributing to the cause of education, to the cause of transformation. And so I sincerely hope that all of you, the students of Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, appreciate the privilege that comes with being part of such an institution which has brought together so many individuals from so many different walks of life, and recognize the responsibility that comes with all privileges. I also want to recognize the presence of Professor Joyni Banerjee, the Vice Dean of the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, my colleague and friend, Professor Sridhar Patnaik, the Registrar of the University, and of course Gargi Bardwaj, who contributed significantly towards hosting this event. I, like you, are eagerly waiting to unravel the performance and the presence of Dr. Saida Hamid and Reni Singh. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rajkumar. It is my honor to introduce the speaker of this commencement lecture today, Dr. Saida Hamid. Besides holding key positions in several educational and rights-based institutions in India and internationally, she is an activist, an educationist, writer, poetess, and performer. Saida Hamid was born in Kashmir and currently resides in Delhi. She holds a BA from Delhi University and an MA from the University of Hawaii and a PhD from the University of Alberta. She has served on the Planning Commission of the Government of India, with responsibilities including health, women and children, and minority rights. She has also served as Chancellor of the Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. Sayyida Apa, as she is endearingly called, is a feminist and a writer who is widely recognized for her passionate engagement in public affairs and social issues, especially those pertaining to women's rights and those of minorities in South Asia. Making the rights discourse a priority of development issues, Dr. Hamid has been a founding member of several groups and initiatives, such as the Muslim Women's Forum, where she advocates for legal literacy of Muslim women, the Women's Initiative for Peace in South Asia, an organization that empowers women as catalysts for a climate of peace through dialogue, South Asians for Human Rights, and the Center for Dialogue and Reconciliation. Dr. Hamid's career demonstrates a long-standing commitment to equitable development, peace, secularism, education of women, and of minority communities. As a member of groups such as the Island Development Authority, she works to ensure the ecologically sound development of India's two major island chains. With the National Commission for Women, she worked to protect and improve safeguards provided to women under the Constitution of India, such as freedom from violence, harassment, and discrimination. Dr. Hamid writes on Islam, Sufism, gender, and peace. She has authored several biographies and translated verse and prose from Urdu to English. Her most recent publication, Sone Chandi Ke But, Writings on Cinema by K.A. Abbas, has been co-edited and translated from Urdu with Sukhpreet Kahlon. This is a book that she's also carrying here for us to have a look at. Saida Hamid was awarded the Padma Shri by the Government of India in 2007. Saida Appa, we are honored to have you deliver the JSLH Commencement Lecture. We are grateful to you not only for taking out the time amidst a busy professional and personal schedule, but also for the effort and creative labor you have put into today's unique presentation. The lecture cum performance has been painstakingly put together by Dr. Saida Hamid and Ms. Reni Singh and is titled Life, Times and Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. Reni Singh is a musician and disciple of Vidushi Shanti Hiranand. She has trained in semi-classical music, Thumri, Dadra, Ghazal Gaiki, and has worked across the country with youth and children in conflict zones. Her love for Sufi poetry is directed towards healing widows and young orphan girls in many difficult terrains of the country. She will be joined today by Saksham Khetwani, student of Jindal Global Law School, on the tabla. May I now request the Vice-Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar, to please felicitate Dr. Hamid and Ms. Reni Singh and present to them the university memento and scarf. May I now request the Vice-Chancellor, the Dean, and the Registrar to kindly take their seats in the auditorium as we set up for the performance, and for Saida Appa to please take her seat here. The performance, Life, Times and Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, is an experience best described by the literary theorist Abhinav Gupta as Sahridayata. It aims to inculcate a certain sensibility in the audience by tapping into the 9 rasas of the Indian aesthetic philosophy. One born before the midnight of August 1947 unfolds her life of composite culture until the present, with many watersheds along the way. Following the spirit of syncretism, the performance blends spoken words with music and poetry, cutting across barriers of all kinds. Before we begin, just a few house rules. Kindly turn off your mobile phones or put them on the silent mode. No flash photography or videography is allowed. The performance will be followed by a question-answer session with the performers. Presenting to you Saida Hamid and Ms. Reni Singh, along with Saksham Kitwani, Lifetimes, and Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. Thank you.
Just a few words from here, and then I take my place there. Dr. Rajkumar, who I have had the privilege of knowing for a long time, but not really meeting that often. It's certainly a great honor to be here today. Dr. Sridhar Patnaik, Professor Kathleen Madrowski, and Professor Jainini Banerjee. How shall I say? This event in the liberal arts and humanities is a very important event for us because we don't really get such a wonderful young audience, and that itself is something which we really treasure. So yes, Jindal University, what Professor Rajkumar said, this journey is something like when I heard about what you said, I thought about, when I was an undergraduate, I used to read a lot of romantic poets. So I remember this line from Keats, and then I felt like a watcher of the sky when a new planet swims into its ken. And this was something which was remarkable about Jindal University. I have to say that I'm sure everyone here, even though you may come from another part of the world, but the language, the music, the sentiment, I think just resonates with everyone. So there's a mixture of the two languages. Mostly the languages, the Sufiana Zaban. So I think occasionally we will also a little bit translate, but bear with us because it is this feeling resonance that we have with you which will ultimately be the success or not so successful end of this performance. Thank you very much.
आपको गार्गी ने बताया, and I'm going to elaborate on this whole Abhinav Gupta philosophy, the literary theorist, contemporary era, 950. And Abhinav Gupta talked of Sahridita, in which you evoke a certain sensibility in the audience by tapping the 9 rasas. So when asked to deliver a commencement lecture, I thought that, this lot of talking, lot of words, but somewhere we have to strike that chord. So why not do it a different way? And that's when I invited my very dear friend, my younger colleague, Reni Singh. Why don't we go together to Jindal University and we do a different kind of a commencement? उनको याद तो रह जाएगा कि हमने क्या किया था.
अव्वले अल्लाह नूर उपाया कुदरत के सब बंदे एक नूर ते सब जग उपजा कौन भले कौन मंदे. From the one light welled up the universe. So who is good and who is bad. पूरब से सूर्य उगा, फैला उजियारा, जागी हर दिशा दिशा, जागा जग सारा, जागा जग सारा, जागा जग सारा.
Let's begin with a little glance at my life for what it is worth, I think, but still I want to share it with you. I was born in Kashmir. Kashmir, which evokes so many feelings, so many emotions in all of us. You know, I'm remembering one couplet of a poet whose name was Brij Narayan Chakbast. Mind you, a Hindu Pandit. We didn't know whether he was Hindu or Muslim. It didn't really matter at that time. And he said this about Kashmir. चप्पा चप्पा है मेरे कश्मीर का मेहमान नवाज. ब्रिज नारायण चकबस्त. चप्पा चप्पा है मेरे कश्मीर का मेहमान नवाज. Every bit of my Kashmir welcomes the visitors. चप्पा चप्पा है मेरे कश्मीर का मेहमान नवाज. रास्ते के पत्थरों ने भी दिया पानी मुझे. जो लिद्दर, when the Liddar river flows, it's stones, and stones yield water. So this was that's something I wanted to share with you. Okay, so Kashmir, then came school, Delhi, going to one of the great public schools where I learned all my initial lessons on this whole concept of Ganga Jamni. The title of our presentation is Lifetimes and Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. And I got this from Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb from my home. And by the way, this is Sonipat, but I'm from Panipat, so I'm your neighbor. For 800 years we lived in Panipat. At the time of partition, my entire 99% of my family was perforce piled into trucks and sent across the border. But Panipat is, chappa chappa Panipat ka hamare khoon mein hai. So anyway, then came school, college in Delhi, of course, beautiful educational institutions. Ours was very beautiful. That's what, we enjoyed it, we were young, it was exciting. Then on to United States, a university in the United States, University of Wisconsin. For many family reasons, had to give up and go to another university, the University of Hawaii, which despite the fact of Diamond Head and Waikiki and all of that, Hawaii was a very strict university. So from there, little bit of teaching in LSR College in Delhi, and then on to Canada, and then on to a PhD. So that was the graph of my, my growing up, my career, my education. And then returned to India. Returned to India many, many, many years ago, and everyone predicted that won't last, she's gone there, but she'll come back. Anyway, so 40 years later, and I'm still here. And then started a whole series of events which has led us and which has directed us towards maybe devoting a lot of our, whatever remainder of my life, and most of Rennie has a lot of life ahead of her, to this whole concept of Ganga Jamni, which we would like to transmit to you through Sehridita. And that is, जब ऐसा कहते हैं कि शेर फहमी के लिए ज़रूरी है कि सहृदयता का असर जो है वो सब पे उसका असर हो. That is kind of a resonance. And this idea, Amir Khusro, the iconic Sufi philosopher, poet, so many ways I can describe him, he got this idea from Abhinav Gupta. So this concept we wanted to, this is why we have, where we imbibe our idea from, and why this lecture has become a sort of has taken on a different mold. So back here, and then what happens? Babri happens. What happens? Gujarat 2002 happens. What happens? 2022 Bilkis Bano happens. So all of that, you are all very well aware of the mahal in which we are living and breathing. So all of these things, then that became so central and important in my life that that is what sort of has blended into this commencement lecture, in which we take you to us and we take ourselves to you. And if अगर सहृदयता से हमारा दिल धड़कता है तो यही हमारी उपलब्धि है. This is what we are trying to this is the result of what we are trying to do. So that's my life, and now Reni's life.
So I was born into a Sikh household. I would wake up to the verses of Gurbani, which has the verses of Baba Farid to Kabir, from Persian to Sanskrit to Punjabi to Gurmukhi. I went to a school in the heart of old town of Delhi, Chandni Chowk, where I was surrounded by a mosque on one side, the Jain temple on one side, the oldest church in Delhi, which was within my school, and we could see from our classrooms the Red Fort. We didn't know who we were, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh. We just knew that we had to enjoy every festival, be a part of everything around us, the food, the clothes, the music, and everything else. So this is how I grew up. And also, my family was from the pre-partition India, Pakistan, Peshawar and Rawalpindi. And my father was a part of the Khudai Khidmatgar. I wonder how many of you people know who they are. They were known as the frontier Gandhis. They were the Pathans. You know how Pathans are. They have the fighter instinct, but they took to the Gandhian philosophy and imbibed the Gandhian philosophy, and they became the Gandhis, the frontier Gandhis. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was the frontier Gandhi. People who are from Delhi over here would know there's a Ghaffar market and a Khan market, which everybody would know, I'm sure, named after them. So this was the mahol I grew up in, and this is who we are, and we hope to take this culture forward. Multicultural Ganga Jamani Tehzeeb.
So Khudai Khidmatgar, Badshah Khan, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, a Sikh family, part of that, part of this cultural, beautiful concept of the cultural mosaic. This is what we treasure, and this is what became for us the main thesis of what we'll try to project, and we'll try to explain, and we'll try to share with you this whole concept of Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. And this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb is the richness of this Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. I don't have to tell you that it's a rich culture. It's something that you understand yourself. And it's this richness of culture, of language, of practices, of events, of celebrations, which is, what really makes this country so unique. Yani there are millions, there are thousands of flowers blooming of different colors. Like Dr. Allama Iqbal said, "Phool hain sehra mein ya pariyan qatar andar qatar. Ude ude neele neele peele peele perahan." These flowers in the garden, like it seemed like there are fairies in a row. Koi udi hai, koi neeli hai, koi peeli hai. And the homogenization of all this, takes away. So that is the. So now we'll move on. We'll keep moving because we are also conscious of the time. So Rennie will present something which is, to me, it is one of the most important statements of the medley of South Asia, of language and of religion. Here is a qawwal from Pakistan. His name is Farid Ayaz, and he sings with his brother Abu Muhammad, and he is singing in the South Asian context, religion. He is praying to the Hindu gods, and this is something which resonates everywhere, from the Lahore and the Karachi and the Islamabad that I remember, and I have not gone back there for several years. And this is something which will be our first example of this Ganga Jamni. Rennie.
So Farid Ayaz Bhai, when he came to India, he was invited to the Kabir Yatra. And these are the words which he resonated. And he probably has so many followers after that. Kanhaiya, याद है कुछ भी हमारी, कन्हैया याद है कुछ भी हमारी, कहूँ क्या तेरे भूलने पे मैं वारी, कहूँ क्या तेरे भूलने पे मैं वारी, कन्हैया याद है कुछ भी हमारी, बेनती मैं कर कर, बेनती मैं कर कर बमना से पूछी, बेनती मैं कर कर बमना से पूछी.
Bamana means Brahmin.
पल पल की खबर तिहारी, कन्हैया याद है कुछ भी हमारी, पैया परी पैया परी महादेव के जाकर, पैया परी महादेव के जाकर, टोना भी कर मैं हारी, टोना भी करके मैं हारी हारी, कन्हैया याद है कुछ भी हमारी, कन्हैया याद है कुछ भी हमारी. And now he switches. मेरा हाथ देख बराहमन, मेरा हाथ देख बराहमन, ये बता, मेरा हाथ देख बराहमन, ये बता कि यार मिलेगा कब, कि यार मिलेगा कब, मेरा हाथ देख बराहमन, ये बता कि यार मिलेगा कब, तेरे मुंह से खुदा करे, तेरे मुंह से निकले खुदा करे, तेरे मुंह से निकले खुदा करे। इसी साल इसी माह में, इसी साल इसी माह में, तेरे मुंह से निकले खुदा करे, मेरा यार मिलेगा कब, इसी साल में इसी माह में, इसी साल में इसी माह में। कन्हैया कन्हैया याद है कुछ भी हमारी, याद है कुछ भी हमारी, याद है कुछ भी हमारी।
फिर जिंदगी आगे दौड़ी, आगे चली, and I became part of two of the most important formations, statutory bodies of this country, the National Commission for Women and the Planning Commission. The highest decision making as far as planning is concerned, and the statutory body under an act of parliament, the National Commission for Women. But in all these positions, I have always thought of myself as an activist. When I was a member of NCW, we were like fire engines rushing. My very first case was again in Haryana, in New district in a place called Sudaka. And I remember there was a case of an honor, ultimately it resulted in an honor killing. But at that time we managed to rescue the girl. And when we went to this place in Haryana, in the New district, in a place called Sudaka, they were all Muslims. And they believed in Gotr and caste, you know, all of these. And I was so shocked. I said, there is nothing like Gotr and caste, and this doesn't exist in Islam. And I know my Islam. And it was my colleague, Dr. Padma Seth, who was the daughter of the first speaker of the Lok Sabha in independent India, Ananta Sainam Iyengar. She stood there and said, do you understand Islam? And all these villagers were milling around. I remember that because I'm here in Sonipat and I'm thinking of, you know, Haryana. So I'm just saying that it crossed. I didn't have to speak for Islam. Dr. Padma Seth, who was a lawyer, she spoke for Islam. So everywhere that I went not as a Muslim woman, just as a woman, as a person who was integral to every section of the society. I went in my very inexpensive, very cheap cotton saris all over the country. And I've just written it down because I sometimes, you know, like for example, the length and breadth of India across caste, class, religion, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, Dalits, Musahars, Chai Bagans, Naga mothers, association of disappeared persons in Kashmir, everywhere. Everywhere I went, in the northeast, in Imphal, in Mizoram, wherever. And in Andaman and Nicobar, in Lakshadweep, some areas were predominantly Muslim, but that consciousness was just not there. If it was violence against women, I was there. If it was anything to do with, you know, hunger, starvation, any kind of deprivation, that it didn't really matter who it was. Could have been a Musahar in a Dalit Basti, in Kusheshwar Sthan in Darbhanga district, that was mine. It could be in Bolangir, in Kalahandi, it could be in Koraput, wherever. So the operating part was that jahan zulm hai, wahan hum hai. Chahe hum development mein ho, chahe hum mahilaon ke liye ho. Wherever there is any kind of physical, mental, emotional violence, you know, maybe I completely sort of went overboard,
but I was surrounded by all the most eminent economists, and I was the person who was always, the activist. I was always the activist. Un logon mein se thi main. So that was very fulfilling part of my life, and many years, 10 years in the Planning Commission, 3 years in the NCW. So my country is like that. My country is sometimes बहार का मौसम होता है, कभी खिज़ा का मौसम होता है, कभी जाड़ा होता है, कभी पत्ते गिरते हैं, कभी पतझड़ होती है, कभी बहार आती है. It's a country of spring, autumn, winter, all kinds. That is my country, and that is beautifully expressed, which only Reni can do.
Faiz Saab says, जर्द पत्तों का बंजो मेरा देश है, जर्द पत्तों का बंजो मेरा देश है, दर्द की अंजुमन जो मेरा देश है, दर्द की अंजुमन जो मेरा देश है, पोस्टमैनों के नाम, तांगे वालों के नाम, रेलबानों के नाम, कारखानों के भूखे जियालों के नाम, कारखानों के भूखे जियालों के नाम, जर्द पत्तों का बंजो मेरा देश है, दर्द की अंजुमन जो मेरा देश है, जो मेरा देश है, जो मेरा देश है. So this is our country. दर्द भी है, बहार भी है, खिज़ा भी है. As Saida Appa said, I have a similar story, traveling our country with music. I have worked with young girls, orphans, widows, traveling from Kashmir to Kanyakumari with music. The interesting part has been, I always saw hope. Wherever there was this feeling of low, I always saw hope with my music. So we made musical stories of their lives, and brought it out on community radios. So eventually, it gave them voice, expression, empowerment, and there they were, getting ready to deal with life.
So our life's trajectory then, as Reni has so expressed it so beautifully, where all of this despair, and yet we always tried to find hope. For the last 30 years, Association of Parents of Disappeared Persons in Kashmir, for the last 30 years they've sat in a certain small park in Srinagar to protest against, they don't know if they are dead, they don't know if they are in prison, they don't know anything. And that trauma, that tragedy, and yet generation after generation brings that hope. So in this context, I want to recall one of our engagements, our common engagements, is that there was a man whose name was Khwaja Ahmad Abbas. He wrote a column for Blitz, non-stop for 47 years, weekly column for Blitz called Last Page. And that time the story was that people used to buy the Blitz and start reading it from the last page. The column was called Last Page. So in his memory and his principles, we started this trust. And when we talk about the trajectory of our lives, I think of a film he made, in which, of course, everyone would know that that was the first film he introduced
Amitabh Bachchan, and Amitabh Bachchan remembers it with lot of love, and he still calls him Mamu Jaan. He always calls him Mamu Jaan even today, and this book that Sone Chandi Ke Butt that Gargi talked about is his stories, which Amitabh Bachchan is now, today or tomorrow, he's going to tweet about it or do something about it. In any event, the reason I'm saying it, this film Saath Hindustani was about the liberation of Goa. And in this there is one nazm or a poem of Kaifi Azmi Sahab. Kaifi Azmi Sahab, who talks about a kind of a hope of a community, a hope of a people that refuse to give up because of the despair that surrounds them. यूं बढ़ो जैसे लहरा के धारा बढ़े, ठोकरे खाओ के दिल हमारा बढ़े. This song sung by Amitabh Bachchan in his very first film with a group of other Hindustanis, because there is Saath Hindustani, 6 men and 1 girl. So that was the film, and Rennie will just present it to you to give you that hope of togetherness. If we are together, there is hope. If we do not stick together, then everything is lost.
So you are all embarking on a new journey. So let's all be a part of this hope and take this hope forward. And do clap along, sing along if you can. यूं बढ़ो जैसे लहरा के धारा बढ़े, ठोकरें खाओ तो दिल हमारा बढ़े. यूं बढ़ो जैसे लहरा के धारा बढ़े, ठोकरें खाओ तो दिल हमारा बढ़े. यूं बढ़ो इस तरह जम के तूफान में रखो कदम, के कदम चूमने को किनारा बढ़े. इस तरह जम के तूफान में रखो कदम, के कदम चूमने को किनारा बढ़े. यूं बढ़ो जैसे लहरा के धारा बढ़े, ठोकरें खाओ तो दिल हमारा बढ़े. यूं बढ़ो एक तरफ मौत है, एक तरफ जिंदगी, बीच से ले चलो कारवां साथियों. एक तरफ मौत है, एक तरफ जिंदगी, बीच से ले चलो कारवां साथियों. हर तरफ दुश्मनी का अंधेरा भी है, हर कदम पे गरीबी का डेरा भी है. सिर्फ रातें हमारी नहीं है सिया, धुंधला धुंधला हमारा सवेरा भी है. यूं बढ़ो जैसे लहरा के धारा बढ़े, ठोकरें खाओ तो दिल हमारा बढ़े. एक दिल है मचलते हैं अरमां कई दिल, मगर एक है दिल की धड़कन भी एक दिल में मचलते हैं अरमां कई, एक दिल है और दिल की धड़कन भी एक. अपना गुलशन भी एक, अपना सहरा भी एक, अपने कांटे भी एक, अपना दामन भी एक. अपना गुलशन भी एक, अपना सहरा भी एक, अपने कांटे भी एक, अपना दामन भी एक. एकता इस मोहब्बत से दुनिया को आवाज दो, बीच से ले चलो कारवां साथियों. इस मोहब्बत से, इस मोहब्बत से, इस मोहब्बत से, इस मोहब्बत से दुनिया को आवाज दो. ले चलो साथ सारा जहां नहीं, ओके? इस मोहब्बत से दुनिया को आवाज दो, ले चलो साथ सारा जहां साथियों। इस मोहब्बत से आवाज दो, ले चलो साथ सारा जहां साथियों, ले चलो साथ सारा जहां साथियों, ले चलो साथ सारा जहां साथियों।
तो कैफी साहब ने कहा कि सिर्फ रातें हमारी नहीं हैं सिया, धुंधला धुंधला हमारा सवेरा भी है। सो द मॉर्निंग इज ऑल्सो डॉनिंग। और इस पे हम अगर इसी गंगा जमनी पे चलें तो दिस concept has kept us on the path, and now we travel back to the 12th century to the iconic Hazrat Amir Khusro, who was the Bani of the Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb. Amir Khusro, who spoke and he wrote in a feminist voice. मैं तो खड़ी थी आस लगाए, मेहंदी कजरा मांग सजाए। मैं तो खड़ी थी आस लगाए, मेहंदी कजरा मांग सजाए. Reni will sing this bandish of Hazrat Amir Khusro, but to personify as a woman. This itself is something which we are the two main pillars of today's commencement lecture is gender and Ganga Jamni. So isi baat ko jo Amir Khusro, and then we'll unfold Amir Khusro a little bit in front of you, and we will take you to the Farsi and the Urdu. And I want you to remember that if you only deconstruct the words, you will understand the Farsi. It is not so difficult. So, it's just the Sehridita is going on. So I'll ask Reni to render this small bandish of Amir Khusro, and then we'll carry on.
Shringar, love for the one above and oneness and celebration. मैं तो खड़ी थी आस लगाए, मेहंदी कजरा मांग सजाए, देख सुरतिया अपने पिया की, 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 हार गई मैं तो तन मन को, हार गई मैं तो तन मन को, एरी सके मोरे पिया घर आए, एरी सके मोरे पिया घर आए, भाग लगे इस आंगन को, भाग लगे इस आंगन को, एरी सके मोरे पिया घर आए, 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 एरी सके मोरे पिया घर आए. He also spoke of the seasons and the pain in the seasons. जिस सावन में पिया घर नाही, जिस सावन में पिया घर माहे, उस सावन की रैन सुहानी, जिस सावन में पिया घर नाही, जिस सावन में पिया घर नाही, पिया घर नाही, पिया घर नाही, पिया घर नाही। आग लगे उस सावन को, एरी सखी मोरे पिया घर आए, मोरे पिया घर आए, मोरे पिया घर आए, मोरे सैया घर आए, मोरे खाजा घर आए, पिया घर आए, मोरे पिया घर आए, मोरे पिया घर आए, मोरे सैया घर आए।
अब हमारा समय अब कम रह गया है, तो हम आपको we want to give you a little taste also when we talk of Ganga Jamni. We want to give you a little taste of the Farsi kalam, Farsi, Hindvi, Khadi Boli, how this is blended together, and a very short, we want to give you a short example of that. कि कैसे अमीर खुसरो, and all this, now we are listening to Hazrat Amir Khusro, and you know that when he says मेरे पिया घर आए, in the same breath he says मेरे ख्वाजा घर आए, because वही हजरत निज़ामुद्दीन के वो भक्त थे, उनके मुरीद थे, और आखिर में वहीं he fell down on his हजरत निज़ामुद्दीन के कब्र पे उनका वो लेटे और उनके ख़त्म हो गए. So that is the whole sentiment of हज़रत अमीर खुसरो, और उसी में ये फ़ारसी और हिंदवी, just an example of that, because losing this, again I keep saying this, losing this mosaic is going to be a great deprivation. For example, Rennie will express this, but for example he says, ज़ेहाल मिस्की मकुन तगाफुल दुराए नैना बनाए बतियाँ. ज़ेहाल मिस्की फ़ारसी, मकुन तगाफुल फ़ारसी, दुराए नैना बनाए बतियाँ हिंदवी, हिंदी. Rennie.
ज़िहाल मिस्की मकुन तगाफुल दुराए नैना बनाए पतिया. किताब हिजरा नादार मैं जान, नाले हूँ काहे लगाए छतिया.
यानी मुझ गरीब का हाल, मुझ मिस्कीन का हाल. ज़ेहाल मिस्की मकुन तगाफुल, don't be negligent and don't be forgetful, मेरा कितना बुरा हाल है. ज़ेहाल मिस्की मकुन तगाफुल दुराए नैना बनाए बतियाँ, आँखें भी चुरा रहा है, बातें भी बना रहा है. So this juxtaposition of the language, and one more and then we'll carry on.
चूशम में सोजा चूज़र्रा हैरान, चूशम में सोजा चूज़र्रा हैरान, हमेशा गिरिया बाइश के आम सखी पिया को जो मैं ना देखूं तो कैसे काटूं अंधेरी रतियां.
चू शम्मा सोजा, मैं शमा की तरह जल रहा हूँ. शमा everyone understand, सोज means जलना. चू शम्मा सोजा
चू जर्रा हैरान, छोटे छोटे, you know, little particles, हैरान हूँ, I'm like bewildered like the small particles. सखी पिया को जो मैंने देखूं तो कैसे काटूं अंधेरी रतियां. So this is the juxtaposition of Hazrat Amir Khusro with Hindvi kalam, Hindi, Hindvi, Khadi and Farsi. So that's one more example. And just to carry this on, you know, we have to sort of bring it to the present. And I want to remind you that just backtracking a little bit. We grew up on a diet of dastans and paheliyan. Dastane, paheliyan, we used to hear the story of Nargis Pari from our grandmother. We heard the story of Hatim Tai from Nani, Dadi, the story of those. That was the diet on which we grew up. And the other thing was that poets came in and out of our house. We didn't know that a man called Firaq Gorakhpuri, his name was Raghubir Sahai Firaq Gorakhpuri. We didn't know. We didn't know that a man called Mulla, एक शायर जिनका नाम मुल्ला था, हमें नहीं पता था कि उनका नाम, his name was Anand Narayan Mulla. We didn't know that a man called Chakbast was Brij Narayan Chakbast. Whether they were Hindus or Muslims, it was absolutely of no interest or consequence. They were just poets who came through the house, who recited and went out of the door. And I remember that when Faiz Sahab had come to our house, and you know, like Faiz Sahab and all his indulgences in every way, I have some very, very fond and lovely memories of him. You know, these were daily things that were happening. And in a parallel way, the same thing was going on in your house.
So, I would just take it forward. My father would regularly recite Ghalib for my mother, this couplet which I'm going to recite for you. जान तुम पर निसार करता हूँ, जान तुम पर निसार करता हूँ, ये नहीं जानता दुआ क्या है, दिल नादां तुझे हुआ क्या है, आखिर इस दर्द की दवा क्या है.
तो जब वो, when he said to his wife that I love you and my life is nisar on you, I don't know what it is to pray before God. Ghalib said it to his beloved and her father said it to her mother. Yeah. So I'm not saying that, you know, we should talk in poetic language, but you know, like all those emojis and all of that. I think we have another world is opening out. And so I was going to talk about monuments, and very briefly then, we saw monuments as monuments. We never thought that this was a Hindu monument, this was a Muslim monument. And today, the monuments have got labels. There's from Babri, we started, Gyan Vapi, Mathura Masjid, Shamsi Masjid, Budaiyon. All of these masjids have now become different entities, this Eidgah, that Eidgah, this prayer, that prayer. All of that was, you know, something which now it is part of the architecture of our daily lives. So I still remember, and now we are almost drawing to a conclusion, I still remember hearing this because I was maybe just born, or I can't, maybe 1 year or something. In 1947, Maulana Azad stood on the stairs of Jamia Masjid ki siriyon pe. He made this immensely classic speech. He was twice the Congress president in 1923 and 1940. And he made the speech in which he said to the Muslims of Delhi were terrified. The riots were raging. They were all sort of thinking, exodus kare, kahan jaye, yahan, wahan. And he made this speech and he said, it is your religious duty to join hands with your Hindu, us zamane mein brethren bolte the, so I can't say brothers and sisters. So he said, it is your religious duty to join hands with your Hindu brethren and fight against a common enemy. You are scared, you are leaving this country. Remember that it was your forefathers who came and performed wuzu on the banks of the Jamna. So these were the classic moments of remembrance, where all these monuments became, historical landmarks in this whole tapestry of the country. So this was my, lead into the last part of our presentation, which is Shah Jahan Abad.
So let's take a walk into Shah Jahanabad. We have students here from all over the country, but Delhi also was a center of Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb in the 18th and the 19th century. As they say, देखो निगाहे नाज से दिल्ली के नज़ारे, देखो निगाहे नाज से दिल्ली के नज़ारे, तहजीब की जन्नत है ये जमुना के किनारे, तहजीब की जन्नत है ये जमुना के किनारे.
और मीर तकी मीर क्या कहते हैं? वो कहते हैं दिल्ली के नहीं कूचे, कूचे कहते हैं कूचा गलियां, लेन्स एंड बाय लेन्स. दिल्ली के नहीं कूचे औराक़े मुसव्विर हैं. वरक is pages and musawwir is artist. These are not lanes and by lanes of Delhi. These are pages of an artist's scrapbook. दिल्ली के नहीं कूचे औराक़े मुसव्विर हैं, जो शक्ल नजर आई तस्वीर नजर आई. Every face that you saw walking through Delhi was like a portrait of an artist.
Wow, nice.
दिल्ली के नहीं कूचे औराक़े मुसव्विर हैं. आपके वोकैबुलरी में कूचा आ गया, औराक़ आ गया, मुसव्विर आ गया. जो शक्ल नजर आई तस्वीर नजर आई. मीर तकी मीर अबाउट दिल्ली के बारे में. So
this piece actually Shah Jahanabad calls for a separate program. We'll come back for that. पर आपको सिर्फ थोड़ी सी झलक दिखा रहे हैं. तो फिर
फूलवालों की साइड.
So बादशाह सलामत थोड़ा सा.
अच्छा चलिए. बहादुर शाह जफर.
She's cutting it short.
The last, I don't want anyone to get up because we're almost at the end and I just love having you all here. We both love it. So Bahadur Shah Zafar, जिनको फिर बर्मा भेज दिया गया, रंगून में उनकी कब्र है. बहादुर शाह जफर अब उठते हैं शाहजहां आबाद में, और सुबह उठते हैं. कैसे उठते हैं? भैरवी की तान से. भैरवी की तान से थोड़ा सा एक भैरवी का एक टुकड़ा कर दो.
जागो जगो जियारा छाए, किरणों की रानी गाए, जागो रे मेरे मन मोहन प्यारे.
तो बादशाह सलामत उठ रहे हैं. रूमाल खाने वालियां रूमाल ला रही हैं. There's a whole department of handkerchiefs. रूमाल कहते हैं handkerchiefs को. रूमाल खाने वालियां रूमाल ला रही हैं शाही नाक पोंछने के लिए, to blow the royal nose. Anyway, there's a whole lot that will unfold, but the operative part of this piece of narration is Phool Walon Ki Sair. And Rennie will tell you a little bit about Phool Walon Ki Sair, and then we'll just go directly into it.
Yeah. So Phool Walon Ki Sair is seen as a true example of the composite culture of Delhi and the Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb. It is one of the festivals which is also celebrated today for celebrating our Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb, our composite culture, and celebration of harmony and peace. I would like to know how many of you know about it. Does anybody over here? Of course. So, very briefly, I would just like to tell you that this celebration was made for 3 days. The procession started from Chandni Chowk with phoolon ki chadar and phoolon ke pankhe, which is now they are made as phoolon ka pankhas. For 3 days, they had to travel from Chandni Chowk to Mehroli, a distance of 32 kilometers. And during that festival of 3 days, there were many sarais, many stoppings, where there were kavalis, bhajans, songs, all kind of tamasha beans. They would be celebrating beautifully for 3 days. And finally, they would put the chadar on the Bakhtiyar Kaki, a Sufi saint of the 13th century, his shrine, and then go on to Jog Maya's Mandir of Jog Maya Devi, and put a chadar there and sing bhajans. So just a jhalak of a small bhajan. And this festival today was revived, in fact, in 1962 by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and then later on by many prime ministers, and these pankhas and chaddars are presented to them, and now the Chief Minister of Delhi. So it's a good thing that it continues, but iski ruh thodi missing hai, so I would expect and hope the youth will bring it all together back and create the same magic which was there. So little jhalak of a, in Jogmai Mandir, bhajan chal raha hai, wo scene dekhiye, celebration chal rahi hai.
और बादशाह सलामत उस पे प्रिजाइड कर रहे हैं.
हम फिर वापस जा रहे हैं. रंग दे, रंग दे, रंग दे, चुनरिया, चुनरिया, रंग दे, रंग दे, रंग दे, रंग दे, कान्हा के रंग में रंग दे, रंग दे, मेरे कान्हा के रंग में रंग दे, 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 धानी चुनरिया मोरे कान्हा को ना भावे, धानी चुनरिया मोरे कान्हा को ना भावे, पीली रंग दी सब रंग रंग दी चुनरिया, रंग दे, 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 रंग दे. राग बाण था, आपको देख के याद आया, पहले मैं भूल गई आपको. He wanted to know every piece which rag it was composed on. तो अभी मुझे उनकी शक्ल, उनको देखा तो याद आया. शुक्रिया.
तो अब जोग माया का मंदिर, and this is the last part of our presentation, and we again come back to maybe today, maybe the context of the present. Again, the whole concept of gender. हम देखते हैं कि I started off when I went back to my memory, Gujarat 2002. I remember Bilkis Bano. I remember how she ran from Limkheda, how she ran with 17 members of her family, 14 of whom were killed, including her small child. And all that happened. I don't necessarily want to narrate those details that everybody knows, it's imbibed in us. So we have Nirbhaya, we have Bilkis Bano, we have Hathras Ki Bachchi. Those are the realities that are, they are traumas within our system. But from this very soil where you are sitting today, Sonipat, from Panipat, there was a poet who was the first feminist poet of this country, who wrote in 1905 about the dignity of women. It's this dharti that gave birth to this man who spoke for women, who spoke for many things. He was a religious reformer. He spoke against all the malinformation and the crudities that had entered into this whole Islamic rubric. His name was Maulana Altaf Hussain Hali, and nobody could question him. So we want to end with Maulana Altaf Hussain Hali, who wrote this in 1905.
ए माओ बहनों बेटियों, ए माओ बहनों बेटियों, दुनिया की जीनत तुमसे है। ए माओ बहनों बेटियों, दुनिया की जीनत तुमसे है। मुल्कों की बस्ती हो तुम्ही, मुल्कों की बस्ती हो तुम्ही, कौमों की इज्जत तुमसे है, कौमों की इज्जत तुमसे है। ए माओ बहनों बेटियों,
तुम घर की हो शहजादियाँ। शहजादी का मतलब होता है प्रिंसेस। तुम घर की हो शहजादियाँ, मुल्कों की हो आबादियाँ। यू पॉपुलेट द नेशंस। तुम घर की हो शहजादियाँ, मुल्कों की हो आबादियाँ, गमगीन दिलों की शादियाँ। शादियाँ मीन्स हैप्पीनेस। इन पेन यू ब्रिंग हैप्पीनेस। तुम घर की हो शहजादियाँ, मुल्कों की हो आबादियाँ, गमगीन दिलों की शादियाँ, दुख सुख में राहत तुमसे है, दुख सुख में राहत तुमसे है।
तुम आस हो बीमार की, तुम आस हो बीमार की, दारस हो तुम बेकार की, द अनएम्प्लॉयड।
Dharas, consolation. The word dharas means consolation. Please.
तुम आस हो बीमार की, ढारस हो तुम बेकार की, दौलत हो तुम नादार की, दौलत हो तुम नादार की, असरत में इशरत तुमसे है, असरत में इशरत तुमसे है।
दौलत हो तुम नादार की, the one who doesn't have a penny, तुम उसकी दौलत हो, उसरत में इशरत तुमसे है। उसरत and इशरत are antonyms. उसरत गरीबी, इशरत अमीरी। So फिर ये मतलब ये कि दौलत हो तुम नादार की, उसरत में इशरत तुमसे है।
ए माओ बहनों बेटियों, दुनिया की जीनत तुमसे है, मुल्कों की बस्ती हो तुम्ही, कौमों की इज्जत तुमसे है।
रेनी।
काबे में कोई ढूंढे, काशी में कोई जाए, संसार कुल को पूजे, कुल को जगत सराहे, सैया सैया, मैं अपने पी के पैया परूं ना काहे, हर कौम रास्त राहे, दीने वकिब लगाहे, हर कौम रास्त राहे, दीने वकिब लगाहे। हर कौम का एक ही रास्ता है और एक ही मंजिल। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू।
I would just like to also just thank Saksham, who joined me on the tabla. We met and we just spontaneously played along. Of course, he needs to be more in the musical space with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Saida Appa, Reni Ji, Saksham. Thank you for the music, poetry, the love, and sharing such valuable, precious parts of your lives with us. Thank you very much. May I now call upon the Registrar of the University, Professor Sridhar Patnaik, to kindly come and give the concluding remarks.
Well, good afternoon. First of all, I have great pleasure in welcoming all the newly admitted students to the BA Honours in Liberal Arts and Humanities, the Postgraduate Diploma in Research and Innovation, and the BA Honours in Sociology. Well, this is truly an extraordinary performance wherein we had a blend of lecture, music, and poetry, which itself is something that exemplifies the pedagogy that you could expect during the tenure of your studies over here. And we are so very grateful to Dr. Saida S. Hamid, Ms. Reni Singh, and of course our own student Saksham for having been part of this performance. There is something that everyone could expect from this performance: music, poetry, literature, philosophy, law, and that's what actually captures the mission of the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, admirably led by Professor Kathleen Medrowski and her team of accomplished faculty members. And this is what you could expect even not only from the School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, but even from the university, for which the bedrock is interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. And you would have so many opportunities in order to hone your skills and develop intellectually, socially, and emotionally. So we appeal to you to make the best use of your duration of stay and studies over here, and assume greater responsibility towards your learning, towards your own selves, and towards your peers and classmates and friends, because we celebrate diversity here at the university. So your greater responsibility and a responsible university citizenry is going to contribute to the celebration of diversity and bring in more joyous moments like the what we have experienced here this morning. So on this particular note, I thank Dr. Saida S. Hamid, Reni Singh, for having been part of this presentation. And even I would like to take a moment of opportunity to thank the Dean, Professor Kathleen Medrowski, Professor Joyini Banerjee, and Professor Gargi Bharadwaj, and all the student volunteers involved here in making this program a great success. And I also recognize the presence of the faculty members from other schools, which includes Professor Stephen Marks, the Dean of Jindal School of Public Health and Human Development, Veselin Popovsky, the Vice Dean of the Jindal Global Law School, and so many others. And I may be forgiven if in case I have not taken the names, but owing to the paucity of time, I would like to stop here, but not without congratulating each one of you for your admission to the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. Please be assured of the support from the school and all the university offices in ensuring that you have a very memorable and an enriching experience over here for the next 3 years and for the next 1 year, and if you choose to pursue your master's as well at the OP Jindal Global University over the next course of 5 years as well, and in perpetuity, if I must say so. So I end here, and my best wishes to all the students and faculty members for an extraordinary semester and a term time ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Patnaik. May I now call upon Vice Dean and Professor Joyini Banerjee to kindly come and give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Gargi. I think, like most of you, I'm still under the effect of the beautiful performance. That was really spectacular. So thank you so much, Dr. Saida Hamid, Ms. Reni Singh, and of course Saksham. The arts are a very important part of JSLH, the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. And it's not just in the arts courses, but also arts is present in many of our other courses, such as sociology, political science, So thank you so much. I think this performance come lecture set a tone of reaffirmation, really. And I think that's what commencements are about, to help us look forward with hope. And I hope all the new students here, returning students, my colleagues, I hope, although it's sort of middle of semester for many of us, but it really sets the tone going forward. So a heartfelt thank you from all of us for the brilliant performance. And thank you, Saksham, also for joining in. Since we are talking about the arts, we would like to take this opportunity to also launch our the second issue of our student-run magazine, Needle. Could I request the faculty coordinator, Professor Mazmin Bilal, to come and say a few words about the journal?
Thank you, Journey, and thank you, Dr. Sayyida Hamid and Mr. Rene Singh, for a wonderful performance. It's a wonderful occasion, but I'm slightly sad that none of the editors of the student magazine could be here today. All of the students who have been working on it this past 1 year and continue to work on it happen to have gone abroad this semester for a semester exchange, which speaks volumes about our our abilities to send a student abroad, I think, for their interesting and diverse experiences. But at the same time, we miss them here. And we don't have any of the students, I think, available. Ananya from the law school was supposed to be here, but I don't think she's here. Oh, she is here. Oh, how wonderful. Ananya, so why don't you come on stage and present our chief guest with copies of our second issue of Needle. Needle is a student-run magazine for the entire JGU community. It is run by students, managed by students. It seeks student, but also faculty and staff contributions. It is biannual. There are 2 issues in a year. It's thematic. Students choose the theme. The first issue, which you launched last semester, was on time, which you have on stage. It is a creative arts magazine. So it does not include just text or image. We have a website. We are open to video submissions, audio submissions, and so on. This theme for the current issue is care, handled with care. And the one for the next issue is humor. So may I request maybe Dean Madrowski and the registrar also to come on stage and to unveil the new issue along with our chief guest. I think the unveiling has also already happened, but if you could just perhaps come on stage and hold it up together, that would be nice.
Thank you very much, Professor Bin Bilal. I think the theme of the issue, care, is also gels in so well with the theme of our performance today, hope and care. And I hope that with these mottos, you will go forward in your time in JSLH. Thank you. We would like to note our deepest gratitude for the Vice Chancellor, Professor C. Rajkumar, and our registrar, Professor Patnaik, to have been here throughout the lecture performance. Thank you very much, Gargi Bhardwaj, for coordinating and putting together this beautiful performance. Thank you to our sound and light team and everybody, all the student volunteers who've been helping out, and the student council members. I think to have taken out time to be part of this really means a lot to us. And thank you everyone else for being here. I'm sure I speak for everyone that this really has been a memorable commencement event for all of us. So good luck going forward to the new students. We'll meet you in class very soon and at the orientation tomorrow.
There are refreshments outside for everyone. Please help yourself. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.